transcribe my notes real quick. They're not very thorough, but I think the idea is there. And so Armando, if you just want to share that, that's great.
Yeah,
You
of
can
course.
look at that and see what you think. You can add to it or throw it out and start over, whatever.
Yes, I want to start sharing my screen with all of you to show you real quick what the semester project for my screen, okay? Just a second. You're gonna think this is funny, but I forgot how to share my screen. Let's see. Speaker view.
I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out how to share it with everyone else, and I just wasn't up there.
Yeah, so go to share, and then share should come up with the screen.
Oh, there's share. It's like right in front of me. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen with all of you. Okay. And so here it is, a semester 3 project. And let me just make it full screen, okay? So we had different solutions. We had two of them, two alternative solutions. The first one was Jane's. And so the first one we discussed a little bit on how this bottom part, it says analysis of the lesson plan and presentation should show activities or curriculum. Sorry about that. Or curriculum and let me just make it full screen. And actions were changed or could have been changed to be responsive to children, families with diverse needs. So what exactly do you mean by that, Jane?
I'm sorry, what exactly do I mean on what?
On an analysis of the lesson plan and presentation should show how activities or curriculum and actions were changed or could have been changed to be responsive to children, families with diverse needs.
What I did was I answered the first two, and I think if we discuss those, then the others might fall into place a lot easier, especially with everyone else's perspective. So if you want to go to the part I wrote, it's the last page. It's the last page, like page 10 of our Google Doc.
Okay.
Did you know, is it in there?
I don't think it's in here, Jane.
Scroll up.
Oh, I found it. I found it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be both children need culturally appropriate responses. So
yeah, my son said, you're mixing two cultures. You need to respond to the two different parties with appropriate cultural responses for them. They're going to be different. So go ahead, just if you want to just read it.
Yeah, of course. It says HX parents should be asked what needs to be done for reconciliation and forgiveness in their culture, what would be appropriate to make amends. Reconciliation needs to be appropriate for their culture. Such response shows the school is respectful of their culture. It also needs to explain that the school has clearly fallen short, but are trying to keep offenses from happening in the future.
Okay, I think that's really apparent, but he says, you put the ball in their court and say, for your culture, what do you need to make amends? What do you need to do for us Sophia to receive forgiveness and reconciliation for what she's done?
Okay. Sophia's punishment needs to be appropriate to her culture. This includes the apology and the loss of privileges already specified.
So that part we already took care of. That's really good because that fits her culture, the punishment there.
Yes. The school should hold an assembly about the tribe's culture and beliefs and invite HX parents and community leaders from both cultures. The parents and tribal leaders would be asked to make a presentation on their culture, including beliefs and practices. The teacher needs to make it clear to the class what happened and why it is wrong. It is not about hair or whether boys can have long hair or not. It is that we deal with other cultures on their terms, and if they see something as important or valuable, then we accept it even if we don't understand why. Make sure everyone in class understands. And school change school motto from respect self, respect property, and respect others, and add respect cultures.
That was Tori's motto for her school. I don't know exactly what it was, Tori, but whatever it was, add respect cultures in there too.
I really like that.
Yeah. Oh, and I gotta apologize, guys. Like, I was working on my research, and the internet went out here, so I couldn't get things in the Google Slides. But I can talk about my solution in a bit if you want.
Yeah, of course.
And then I'll just add it when I can.
Okay, well, mostly like this discussion was just most about discussing different solutions. I don't think you really have to write about it unless you really want to, because he wanted us to just submit this video.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay, cool.
so we're gonna say something, Tori?
No, yeah, I really like that Jane's solution and everything that went along with that. I think it's really important, especially when you do have children with different diverse backgrounds, to make sure that, you know, it's included in the everyday curriculum. Like, it becomes a natural part. And yeah, assemblies are great, but like that's only a once in a while thing. But if you really do incorporate everyone's culture, just in like the stories that you tell or like the different solutions you come up with, like that's a really great way to incorporate the cultures. And that's actually what my research was about as well, was working together in groups to like figure out different solutions based on different cultures.
Yeah, I really like this, Jane, because you're able. I part of the requirements. Oh, and by the way, I'm recording, so I'm just letting all of you know. So hopefully it's cool with you guys. But I was going to say that part of this is that we're supposed to explain why we chose our first initial solution. And I really liked how Jane in the beginning explained why we did what. Like it was basically like an overview of what we did in the beginning. And I think it kind of clarified some things that we did do. Like for instance, with HX, we were in his culture, let Sophia know that's an offense. And also Sophia, she received the punishment according to appropriate to her culture. So I really liked that, Jane, and I really liked how we focused a lot more in, yes, respecting others' property, but also respecting the differences, although we don't understand them.
Okay, I did answer those first two questions, and we can see if those answers fit everybody's opinions there.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll discuss that towards the end. Jane,
Okay,
Journey, but thank you. Journey, did you have any other comments or you're good?
No, I think you guys covered all of it.
Okay, awesome. So let's go back to a PowerPoint. We'll go back to yours, Jane. So we're going to go to my solution. So what I did was I did research in the school's website, and I found there's different programs that the schools have done to avoid suspending students and expulsing students. Because my initial thought was like, let's suspend her for 2 weeks. But then I thought like that'd be a little bit too harsh because I thought of how Jane was saying in the beginning when the principal was talking to a teacher that they have the right, the district's policy, they would be able to suspend Sophia if it would need be. But I found this program where it's called Safe Responsive School. And basically what they do is they develop these programs for students and teachers where they train them how to react and how to handle situations where we're not sure how to necessarily respond with different cultures. And so my solution was Sophia is placed in a safe responsive school program where she is admitted into a 2-week course that focuses on preventative efforts such as conflict resolution and crafting a civility code and on developing specific reactions towards students of different cultures. At the end of the program, Sophia is placed back in class and given the opportunity to put her new techniques into practice. So that was my solution. When it comes to the consequences, I would stick with the same consequences, except I would just add this program, if that makes sense.
I really like that because I feel like it's a win-win for everybody because she learns what she did wrong, and she learns, you know, and you know she's not really gonna have another incident like that. And both of the moms are pretty satisfied because she still is able to attend school, and it's kind of a win for both sides where it's not like a win, but you know it's a good solution for both sides.
Yeah.
Is this school, is it like just a pull-out program from her school? She's still in school and just goes to, class every day or something? Or is she actually going to a different school for 2
Mhm.
weeks?
That's a very good question, Jay. No, she's going to the same school. She's going to the same
Oh, okay.
program. It's the
Okay.
same school, except it's kind of like, you know how some people are placed into like gifted and
Right.
talented or like ESL, kind of like
Okay.
that. They don't necessarily pull her out, but whenever
Good.
she has recess, or whenever she has kind of like mentors, having people behind her. And
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
hmm and I found my sources just so I could show the video. I found it on Opposing Viewpoints. It's a article where it talks about what do we know about school discipline, about suspensions and expulsions, and it basically talks about the U.S. Department of Education and their certain expectations that they have put. And so that's a lot of fancy charts that I was looking through. So that was my solution. And Journey, did you want to talk briefly about yours or what?
Yeah, yeah, I can do that. So mine's more of an added, like a different kind of perspective and a different kind of take on everything. So this is from a talk called Unity and Diversity by Elder Carmack. And he talks about how there's like after World War II, there's like all these different countries and there's like all these different people coming together. And he talks a little bit about California and how there's like so many different people that are living in California, and like he asked the question, is there any way that all these people could unify and overcome these divisive elements of diversity? And he says that there's a unifying force powerful enough to overcome the divisive elements of diversity. And then he kind of goes on to talk about like how different cultures can spark like discomfort in people, and how like bringing new things in can make people kind of scared, and it can make people worried about change, and it can confuse people. So he also said that discomfort because of language barriers, fear of accepting those with differences in skin color, alienation of singles, all have created barriers to unity. So to me, this is kind of like one way to help Sophia might be able to help her and the class kind of overcome maybe the fear and the confusion of the differences in the classroom, and maybe like doing activities to help them overcome the divisive elements of diversity, and just kind of like need to teach them about the culture so they're not so confused when they come in and it's not something completely different when something like that comes into the classroom.
How would you propose to teach them? Did you think about that? How would you?
Probably through activities, just different activities. I think you can do different activities about culture, and you can even like, if you're doing activities with other lessons, kind of put people in the same group that are struggling. So if you have like one person from a different culture, and like mix up, like put people in the same groups where it's like different cultures, and don't keep the same things, and kind of get people out there so they're experiencing diversity instead of their own little bubble.
Yeah.
Maybe whoever teaches Armando's Safe School Response could
hmm
come in and teach the class as a whole, an ongoing thing for however long it takes to go through their culture segment. Maybe, I don't know, how does that?
Yeah, you know what I thought of? A couple weeks ago, we read this article. Can all of you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. We read this article in class where we talked about two different groups of students that were learning how to handle gender equality, and that some of them were like they were told stories, and the other group they were actually told exactly what to say during certain situations. So I think going back with what Jane was saying, I think it would be a great idea with what Journey was saying, but with like acting it out in class or just putting it into practice instead of just hearing stories about it, of how they can do it.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Okay. Tori, do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great solution to just educate everybody, because Sophia, she really didn't understand what she was doing and the importance of it. And I think that's the basis of the problem. So I agree with everything that she said.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Journey. Tori, did you want to share briefly what you had written down?
Yeah, so basically, one thing that I really found It is from a book called The Five Learning Disciplines, and I'll just go over the five of them briefly. The first one is personal mastery. It's where you have a vision of what you want your personal life to be like, and you create goals to master that. And as teachers, we can help students like create their own goals. It can be really simple at first, like, oh, I want to get like 8 out of 10 on my spelling test, or I want to be nicer to Jimmy or whatever. And you can just help them, work towards those goals. The next one is a shared vision, and this is more of like the shared vision of the teachers and administrators and any parents that are coming in and helping, or just parents in general. And you come together and you're like, okay, this is what we want our students to achieve. This is what we want them to learn and how to learn them. And just work together to create that goal and that vision. And the next one is mental models. And this is just creating the attitudes of like the different goals that you have. So like if, let's see, like Claire wanted to, get like 80 out of 100 multiplications correct, she'd be like, okay, I can do this, like I'm going to practice and all this stuff. And this can also like apply to the situation that we have now, is like, okay, just because someone's different doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're inferior to me. And they, I can really learn something from them.
Yeah. I think I love what you're saying, but what I thought of right now is what Brother Adams told us when we first submitted our first part of our project, where he was telling us that he didn't want us to focus too much on the culture, which I think is great, but he wanted us to also think like, what if this were to happen to like a Hispanic or to Sophia herself? What if it wasn't Sophia that cut his hair? What if it was Achak that cut Sophia's hair? And so I think we can mix in with what you said, Tori, but with the whole concept of like just in general how bad it's, like almost physical assault with what he did.
And I think that's why I also like your solution to the, what school is it? The SRS school or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's not focusing just on the cultural aspect. It's talking, it's kind of teaching her more about everything else. Like it's kind of teaching her more about, more than just the culture. It's more about, everything else around it too. Like the personal assault and everything.
Yeah. But I think like overall with what Tori was saying as well, I really like how the article she found focused on, I guess, approaching differences too. So
yes, I really like that.
Mhm. Thank you, Tori. Was there something else you wanted to share, Tori, or you're good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, perfect. We can keep on going to the next questions. Our next questions was, what factors became most important? Wait, I think we're supposed to pick one, but it looks like Jane left right now. She's probably feeling a little bit sick. So going back, it says, we did that. Think about your team's solution. So our own solution, the first one that we picked, why did the two of you choose to accept the first solution we had talked about?
Are we talking about Jane's?
No, the first one that we submitted. The first one where she had lost her privileges.
I think that when we...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're good, go.
I was just going to clarify, like, the privileges lost of, like, the scissors and all that stuff.
We're say...
I feel like our first solution kind of felt like it was all encompassing, like it talked about it I think it kind of like almost taught more of a lesson, but it didn't. But I feel like the more that we've worked on this project a little bit, that there's more we could add, but I feel like it was a very good like start to finding a solution to the situation that happened.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I feel like it was, I guess the first solution that we did pick, we mostly, what I noticed is that we were leaning towards that one because we didn't want to be too easy on Sophia. We wanted to respect Achak's culture, but we didn't necessarily know how to. So that was probably our best approach that we took. And I feel like the first approach, it kind of gave an instant solution, but we didn't really have anything to, like, how could we avoid this from happening again? How could we avoid something like this in other cases? So I think with our alternative solutions, it's perfect to dive into a different approach to this thing that happened between Sophia and HAC. So, okay. So we just basically delve into it to like think of a solution. So let's see. So we talked about the alternative solutions. And so how does, it says right here, consider, it says, and an alternative to consider or do in response to child and his learning. So how would this affect Sophia's learning and HAC's learning?
I feel like it's going to create like, you always want a safe classroom when you're in your classroom. You always want kids to feel like they're open to share their ideas. And I feel like it'll add a lot of contention in the classroom, and kids might start to feel like they aren't really safe there and they aren't open to share their ideas and that they won't be respected.
That's true. That's true. I also feel like it will help because they're kids. I feel like they still don't completely understand um, the difference between these cultures and how they respond. Even as adults, we don't understand sometimes. It's hard for
That's
us,
true.
but it really enhance their ability to talk with people of diverse backgrounds. I was also going to say, going to the next question. What are some pros and cons from like the solutions that we have placed? Do you guys see any maybe things that could backfire?
I feel like there's a lot like of singling Sophia out almost. And I feel like that can almost backfire because she's going to feel like, I know she did it and like she's wrong in it, but I feel like that can always lead to bullying. And, that can always lead to like social like segregation when you're like kind of taken out of everything. And, like Sophia is now the reason like, she's going into like this program and like all these other things, like she's going to be very singled out and she's going to be very withdrawn from her peers. And I feel like that can lead to some other situations with like bullying and stuff like that.
But I feel like if we implement the program in the beginning of the year and how, in the beginning of the year, you're supposed to talk about the procedures and spend the first couple of weeks of like explaining the rules and like the consequences. If you just say like, if, there's a problem, like these are our rules, and if, if we need more education, like it's not a bad thing. We just need to like, spend more time in a different setting where we can learn these different things. Like this is what's going to happen. So when the situation does arise, like it won't be just Sophia be like, okay, Sophia, this is the program we have for you. Like blah, blah, blah. That's explained in the beginning of the year to everybody, and everyone will like be aware and just be like, okay, this is what's going to happen.
So you propose that we implement that program at the beginning of next year so that Sophia doesn't get singled out, or were you still good with putting in Sophia first and then implementing it for the school?
Maybe like have her do it for part of her recess, like recess academy, just so she can learn. But it's not like a super huge deal for her, like missing so much school or even her recess, and then implement it in the beginning of next year.
Okay. We're going to say something, Jenny?
No.
Okay, then. Okay, I think that's a good idea. I was also thinking another con that could affect are the parents. I think the parents
Yeah.
were going overboard. They're thinking like, okay, so this is a child. I'm just putting myself in the parents' shoes. They might be like, this is my child. They made a mistake. I accept they made a mistake, but do you really have to go through these extremes to teach my child something that I could teach him at home in less than 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, so that's something that just came into my mind. That could be another con I think of the parents. And I think how we can approach this is well, actually I don't know how to. So, so the con that I thought of. Yeah.
I feel like there's lots of pros to it though too.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked a lot about those though. So
Okay. So, thank you, Journey. So in that case, we'll keep on going if that's okay with the two of you.
Yeah.
Um, so
Actually, I'm
next,
gonna have to leave in a couple minutes. I have an appointment.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, for sure. We're just gonna go over. So the last question I was gonna really go over was why did your team choose the solution they proposed? It talks about an analyzing the lesson plan. But the thing is that we didn't really analyze the lesson plan. We just picked a random lesson plan and just thought like, okay, this works in the activities in the curriculum. So I'm not sure really that we really put too much thought into it and how it would be responsive to the children's family with diverse needs. I think that would be good to just stay the same. I don't know if that really is a bad idea, but
I think it'll be good.
okay. So the last part I was going to go over is the conclusion. So we discussed the questions, and so our conclusion is if we were to choose one alternative solution out of all the solutions we discussed about and we've talked about in this PowerPoint that we made, what would it be?
I think I would choose the program because I feel like that's a good way for. I feel like that's a good way for everybody. Like it's not a win-win for everybody, but it is a win-win for everybody at the same time. Because, like Achat's mother, she's satisfied because she's still like Sophia's learning like that it's like personal disrespect, and Sophia's still getting punished for it, and her parents are satisfied because it's no longer the threat of suspension for Sophia for personally attacking another student. So I feel like that's kind of a good solution because Sophia can still stay in school, but she's still learning what she did wrong, and she's still being punished for it.
Okay. And that means if it's an alternative solution, we would have to change some things. For instance, we probably will we take off the privileges or will we keep the privileges?
I think allowing the class to keep their the scissors and stuff in the classroom would be a good if you like put her in the program because she's not going to be in the classroom and she's not going to be around that anymore. So she won't be in the classroom for those 2 weeks or however the program would work.
Okay.
But I feel like allowing the class to still have their activities would still be because she can still come in and she can still take part in it, but she still knows what she did wrong and she's still learning about it.
Okay. That's true. And I think part of that too is not only training Sophia but Achak too.
Yeah.
Making him go through the program too. Not only her but just him. Because I feel like both of them will be able to better respond to situations like this and avoid being in situations like this. And I think it would be a good idea to also place the teacher in this program so that the teacher could also like train them to remind them of how they have to be alert when this happens. But
Yeah, I would
I don't understand how Achak would be in it. Would that seem like a punishment to him?
I don't think so. I just feel like something we're talking about is that we just don't want to put everything on Sophia, making her go. And like, not only does the program, what were you saying, Tori?
Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't me.
Oh, you're good. So, I feel like we have like this program not only trains students of how to deal with like diverse situations, but it also helps like other students be able to handle it. So I think it would be great to put Achak there so he can know how to handle it if this does happen again because his first reaction was crying. And I feel like he'll be a little bit more like, okay, it's okay. This he doesn't understand. She or he doesn't understand why they do that. So probably wouldn't be the best way of reacting by crying.
it's more of a way to help him understand too, like what happened and why it happened and how to handle it in the future if it happens again. So
Okay.
Jane, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm so sick. I'm just so sick.
You're good. You're good.
I'm trying.
So we're excited is here, and Jane, yours. If you can just paste this right here, or do you use any websites or not really?
You know what? I just interviewed the professor and got his insights into it. So I really don't have any references other than, hey, I talked to this guy. There, I think doing the three that you have, the church aspect or the church point of view, and the Google Scholar, and then the past readings, and then you looking at the internet. I think that we've definitely covered the requirements there. I don't know that I need to turn in anything.
Yeah.
I could turn in my notes, but
You're good, Jane. Well, I think we're done for today then. We discussed our alternative solutions, and I think we're good to go. Thank you so much. It's great working with you.
wait,
Yes.
now what about those? What do we turn in? I'm so sorry I missed that part. What do we turn in? How do we do that?
No, you're good. So I've been recording the whole video since we started. And so I'm just going to send the video to Journey again, and then if Journey can submit it, it's just a link. And then everything's in because we wanted this to be a video of us discussing these questions, discussing our PowerPoint, and we've discussed everything. I made sure that we discussed the bullet points.
Great. Journey, thank you for doing that. You're editing it, right? Editing out the icky stuff.
It'll be fine. It'll be just fine.
Okay, thank you. So are we done with the project then? As soon as that video is edited and turned in, is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. And you'll let us know when that happens so I can finish up the week's activities.
I will.
Thank you. I think this was the very most